Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming back for day 3 of Unleashing the Power of Partnerships. We've had a truly amazing, truly informative, truly just wonderful time the last 2 days, and we are super excited to really finish up the conference with a bang. We've got a lot of really great things happening today. We've got more great sessions, more great Ask Me Anything sessions. We've got some pitches going down today. So I know I'm super excited. I've talked to some of the other speakers this morning. They are super excited for all of you. And again, we cannot thank you enough for being a part of our presentation all week this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And now for our welcome this morning, I'm going to turn it over to the CEO of the Strategist Company, Dr. Sharoni Little. Doctor?
Thank you so much, Austin. And we are excited, as you indicated, this is day 3 of what has been an outstanding and spectacular and transformational conference over the past couple of days. Welcome again to this fantastic Unleashing the Power of Partnerships. And we are so thankful that you all have been here to experience a wealth of knowledge, of fellowship, of networking, but most importantly, insight and access to transformational resources, transformational individuals. And we are excited that this is launch day. So as you continue just to envelop all of this wonderful knowledge, be thinking today about how will I turn this into everything that I've sought to do? How will I use this as a platform to either launch into new spaces, to launch into incubate new ideas, to launch most definitely into new partnerships? And so we want to thank today our sponsors who have been so generous to provide many of the resources that we've experienced the past couple of days, beginning with our unicorn sponsor, Silicon Valley Bank. We also want to thank our partnership sponsor, SAP.io and Morgan Stanley, our seed sponsor, Cooley, our startup sponsor, Grasshopper, and of course, our overall conference sponsor and host, COI Energy, and CEO, Celisa Berrien. A couple of other things that we want you all to remember is that because we have gathered and really looked at how we can partner, it's going to be important that you follow up after today. One of the key ways that you will remain in community is by joining the LinkedIn group, Unleashing Conference Female Founders Circle. Unleashing Conference Female Founders Circle. And that's where you will gain access to all of the resources and materials, the links to all of the sessions that have taken place throughout the conference. So please make sure that you do that as well. But again, as we get ready for today, as you really think about the investment that you've made in yourself, in your company, really leave today with a commitment that I am launching into new territory. It is my time and I will succeed. So again, sit back, relax, and get ready for another wonderful and spectacular day of this outstanding conference. We look forward to seeing you throughout the day. Thanks so much, Austin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Little. That was excellent. Get us going this morning. All right. Right now, some of you are about to head off to pitch sessions. First of all, I want to say good luck. You got this. All right. You've spent 2 days with us talking to founders, talking to people who have been doing this for most of their lives, have given you tons of invaluable knowledge. Really draw on that. Take that wealth that you've learned and really invest in that during this process. So if you are a part of that pitch session today, remember, check your email for your link. Remember to head off about 15 minutes earlier than your allotted time slot. We're not sure how long each pitch is going to take, but we've given everyone enough time to get in, do a great job, and get out. So we want you to be there, be on time, and be ready to go. So again, if you're doing the pitch session today, we want you to find that link that you should have been sent in your email. Make sure to be there about 15 minutes early. and just be ready to go. And again, of course, good luck, good luck, good luck. You got this. It's all about confidence. So thank you so much for participating in that. We're going to wait just a few minutes for folks to head off to that. We want to make sure everyone has a chance to head off to that. And also, if you're joining us for this session, for our next presentation, we're going to give everyone just a few more moments to do that. Again, if you're also participating in our panel discussions or our AMAs a little bit later today, you can just refer to your digital agenda. That is your roadmap. That's your guide, okay? That's going to get you here from the main session over to the Ask Me Anything sessions. We're going to be talking about the power of universities today. We're going to be talking about PEO. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things in other panels. That digital agenda will get you from here in the main session back over to any of those breakout rooms that you want to participate in. And we encourage you to participate in as many as you can. And then that's going to get you back from those breakout rooms back right here for our closing remarks a little bit later today. Thank you so much, everyone, again, for joining us. And at this time, we are going to go over to the serial founder and executive of Philadelphia for Transforming Shame into Power, Failure as Fuel, Kristen Clark. Kristen?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Austin. I really appreciate that. And Dr. Little, that was an incredible intro. And I am so excited today to be here and to talk about a very fun topic, shame. So what's also kind of interesting about talking about this topic is I can't see anybody's faces right now. And I am going to be trusting all of you to either put some things in the chats about, oh my gosh, this is making sense, this is not making sense. But we're going to get going. So I first want to thank, I think everyone else is kind of taking a minute right now to do some transfers over into different rooms. And just give me 1 second. I'm going to start sharing my screen and then we're going to get this kicked off. All right. So first off, thank you, Salisa and COI Energy and all the sponsors for inviting me here today to talk about a topic that is not a popular topic. Shame is almost a 4-letter word in a lot of ways. It's something that we spend our whole lives and mostly our whole careers hiding from, not wanting to acknowledge it, not wanting to talk about it at all. And that's why we're here talking about it today. One of the things that's been really important for me in my career that I'm going to talk a little bit more about has been actually finding and digging into and understanding these very hidden, ugly, not so kind things and thoughts that actually hold us back. And they hold women back in a different way than they hold men back. And they hold women back in technology and startups and in life in just a completely different way. And that's what I'm here today to talk about. So I really, really appreciate your time and kind of willingness to jump into this topic. And before I even get started, in the spirit of transparency, because that's kind of what the antidote to shame is, actually transparency and being willing to talk about it and to share it. I really wanted to take a transparent moment and be like, oh my blanking goodness, are we in a historic moment today with Kamala Harris being nominated as the VP elect? And, you know, as I woke up this morning, was thinking about it yesterday, it is such a meaningful moment for me to be able to be here in this community and to really be able to celebrate what it seems like a victory. And I think that we all really needed at least a bit of hope, a bit of a shot in the arm, so to speak. And it is an incredible honor and a privilege to be here in this community. And it was the same thing last year that we were out on Martha's Vineyard and getting to be in a community of diverse female founders who are really here to change the world in really powerful ways. And so I just really want to acknowledge that and celebrate that. And if I could see you on the page right now, it'd be like a yes, we're moving forward. And I often find as women and as executives, like we are constantly like going. And so it's really sometimes hard to take a pause and to just acknowledge and celebrate the victories and the wins and be able to fully relish in moments, because especially this year and in COVID, they're not very many of them. So thank you. So why are we talking about shame today? Well, we are talking about shame because shame is sludge. In other words, shame is one of those pieces that it likes to go unnoticed. It likes to bury itself in the back of the recesses of our brains and our hearts and our bodies. And if we don't understand how it shows up in our life, it comes out sideways and it completely wreaks havoc. Unconsciously, consciously, it just wreaks havoc. However, I have been studying it within myself. I've been studying within my peer group. I have been really spending a lot of time talking to female founders. And what I've noticed is that when women have this ability, men do as well, but women have like a unique ability to take that energy, to take that shame. And instead of using that as sludge, we have the ability to actually metabolize it in a different way that basically can pour like fuel onto the fire of our personal and professional growth. It is like high octane, high speed. Like think of like your amazing sports car that's like completely clogged up and just can't run very well. And that's what shame does to us, you know, as women, as executives, as founders, as leaders in our space, in our families, in our communities, in our professions. And when we learn how in a different set of tools to be able to transform that shame and to metabolize it in a different way, it actually fuels us in an entirely different way that then allows for incredible transformational growth. But what that means is that we have to walk into the swamp of shame, into the places that nobody wants to talk about and that are completely ignored by everyone, the things that nobody wants to talk about. So we're here today as an open forum to talk about all of it. I have a teacher that often says, you know, if you think of a piano and the 88 keys, you know, women are taught to play middle C. We're taught to be modest. We're taught to not be very big. We're taught to be thin. We're taught to have, you know, to be assertive but not aggressive. We're taught that we need to be really forward thinking but not too forward thinking to intimidate other people. We are taught to do all of these things, but mostly we have to fit into a very tiny, narrow middle C. And if you think on how you keep on playing that middle C, it gets kind of boring and it's exhausting. And like at the end of the day, it's like, think of what you're missing out on playing all of these 88 keys of a piano. But that 88 keys of a piano, it means that some of those keys are going to be the ugly stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, the stuff that we're taught to hide away from, to not talk about, to say, okay, I can't actually tell anybody that I feel like an imposter. I can't actually tell anybody that I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing here. I can't actually tell anybody like, man, I am so exhausted and can't even think of something else, like, and I need help. So those are all of our 88 keys though. And so we need to learn to expand our range. We need to learn how to play them, how to feel them, and then how to metabolize them so they can actually move for growth. So, okay, cool, Kristen. We're going to talk about 88 keys. You're going to talk about shame. The reason why I'm here and like in full transparency, again, like thinking about being like, oh, I'm just going to wake up on a Wednesday and talk about shame. Cool. Not an easy conversation either. But the reason I'm doing this and the reason I think it's so important is because I personally, like in my bones, want your voices in the world. We need women. We need Black women. We need people of color. We need every single kind of diverse voice in the world so that we can change the narrative that we are currently living in. And what I have seen over and over again is that these hidden aspects of the shame, of the doubt, of the confusion, of the overwhelm, like all of these things we're saddled with in a very unique way that we don't talk about. And it's massively holding us back. So all of this is today is because at the end of this, when we get through this, and we'll go through some Q&A and some frames at the end, is to be able to give you a different set of tools and a different perspective on ways that you can then activate yourself and then your community and your family and your professions and your job and your work, so that you can actually have energy and growth to go and do bigger and more powerful and impactful things in your life. So that's why we're here, talking about shame. So I'm gonna stop the screen share just for a second so you can get a full big picture of me talking for a second. And what I wanna kind of talk about is me, which is very uncomfortable. But I think it's really relevant because the story and kind of what I'm gonna share with you, I want it to give an understanding of where I've come from, why I've studied the things that I have studied, and why these things are really important to me. And then from there, then we're actually going to go into talking about how do you metabolize this shame and how do you actually transform that energy into that rocket fuel that we all need in our lives. So about me, so I'm Kristen, this is my house. I live in Washington, DC. I love plants in my gardens. I even got some flowers for you all back there. I don't know if you can see them. I've got my other plant right there. I love chocolate and favorite color is purple. COVID sucked. COVID has sucked. It's continuing to suck. But I've also found that it's given me some incredible opportunities that I never would have had in my life without COVID. So I'm actually really grateful for some of these opportunities to slow down and to think and to pause and to be able to think about things like this. I had been in 7 startups, been in tech my whole career for about 15 years or so. I have never had a unicorn rocket ship exit of a startup, but I've been through some dramatic, like high school drama-filled breakup startups, like that have died spectacularly. And so if you were to look on my LinkedIn, which I hope you all do, and you connect with me, because if there's anything I can ever do to help you, I want to do that. You would see a highly successful woman. You'd see like, wow, she started off her career in consulting. She did some startups in ed tech. She went over to social analytics. They got acquired. Seemed like that was kind of good. She did a lot of work with really big brands, did some really cool stuff with AI, machine learning, sentiment analysis. She then started her own company, 2 companies, one with her ex-husband on creating a bean to bar chocolate company, because why not? Another one doing education for nonprofits, and then went into the social impact world, where I was most recently at a company called Dharma Platform, that we provided data collection tools for organizations like the CDC, WHO, Doctors Without Borders, in the field, all over the world, really helping do global health work. I was their chief growth officer, led sales, marketing, customer success, strategy. And we're backed by TPG, which is a really large private equity company, and actually the world's largest social impact fund, the RISE Fund, which had been backed by Bono and a guy named Bill McGloshin. And it was $2 billion, and they believed in Dharma and had given us money. So it was a super awesome opportunity. So LinkedIn, resume, looks amazing. I have a nice house, I'm so lucky. But all the things that are not on the LinkedIn that I'm going to share right now is because sharing and transparency are really important, is I lost over $100,000 to startups that failed, my own money. I completely burnt out. I wish it was once, it was actually multiple times, to the point that I had to take, my doctor looked at me and she was like, Kristen, if you do not take a medical leave of absence, you're gonna end up in the hospital. So I did. I took 6 weeks off of medical leave, walking into HR and having to tell somebody that you are sick in a way that doesn't appear to be sick, but that you're sick, and having to ask for 6 weeks of medical leave off because you just can't do it all. When you're leading a team, you're leading a business unit, you're leading the company's 2nd largest products around social listening. It's not easy. Throwing a divorce in there. One of the startups that I was working on, we went through an acquisition. It was a fire sale, which basically means it's like everything's on fire and you're just desperately trying to find a home. And in that process, we had to lay off half the company. Our customers were a disaster. We were losing critical partnerships. And at the same time, my entire marriage is falling apart right around me. And that was a total rock bottom. So yeah, so it's like and that's like, and everyone knows that, you know, that like your Instagram, your Facebook personas are so different than what real life is about. And so I'm sharing all of that because in those spaces of the burnout, in the spaces of the breakdowns, in the spaces of I just can't get out of bed, I really dug deep and found an incredible therapist. My family and my friends were extraordinary support systems for me. I started doing a ton of research in psychology. I'd had a background in psychology, but I was like, what is happening in my brain right now? Like, what is happening in society's brain? Why are all of the women that I'm looking at right now as my supposedly mentors and my peers and my role models in tech? Why aren't there any? Damn it. And then B, why is everyone getting sick? Why is everyone getting sick? You know, why is everyone not actually there? Like, what is happening? And that led me to do a lot of, I've been in a lot of women's retreats that are both on executive coaching retreats, all the way to yoga retreats, and really kind of doing a lot of body exercises, doing a lot of meditation. So I've really been trying to spend intentional amounts of time the last few years to really understand like what is happening. So in that inquiry and period, that is a lifelong journey. So I got like 3 funny stories for you about how shame, because we're kind of coming back to that, and how shame surfaces. And so, and one of the things that I started noticing was that, you know, I'd be like, why am I so tired? Like, why am I so weepy? Like there's this one time, oh my gosh, it was like the worst of the worst. And I didn't even know how bad it was. You know, those moments where you're like, oh, I'm fine. Totally fine. No, I'm really fine. Totally fine. And then your friend like goes, like my very good friend, Shana, we went for a pedicure and she's like, how are you? And I was like, fine, totally fine. And she just looked at me and she was like, how are you? Wow. Just started crying. And I remember telling her, I was like, I don't even know why I'm crying. I don't even know. I'm just crying. I'm so sad. I feel like I'm dying inside, but like, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I'm just dying inside. And there's something wrong with me. I'm not doing something right. There's something wrong with me. Why am I just crying? I'm not being a good enough employee. I'm not thinking critically enough. I should actually be working not 10 hours a day. I should be actually working 12 or 14 hours a day. If I had redid that PowerPoint presentation, that customer would have stayed. If I, no joke, this actually came across my head. You know, if I had worn a more conservative shirt, that meeting wouldn't have gone so crazy. This is true stories in my head. And I know it's in all of our heads too. Like this is the thing. And so Kristen started off not being able to even understand what the hell was going on, crying profusely and being like, I don't know what's happening. I'm fine. To then starting to learn these tools that we're going to talk about how do you start noticing? How do you start actually feeling where shame lives in your body? How do I start kind of like being like a sleuth detective of my life to be like, oh, these are the conditions that actually create a total meltdown situation for me. And all of them, what I started noticing was like, all of them have to do with this shame. So example 1, so Dharma, Chief Growth Officer, we had an incredible CEO, classic, out of Central Casting, white dude from Texas, had been in tech forever. At first I was like, oh God. And then I realized like he's actually one of like the biggest champions of women and was a huge champion of me in so many ways. But we had a really, really big business trip. And it was 2 to 3 months after I'd started. I was trying to prove myself. I was trying to make sure I was relevant. I was adding value. And even though I came across as like, oh my gosh, you're like totally competent. You're awesome. You've got all this blah, blah, blah. The inner voice inside was like, am I really, what's happening? And so we go on this really big business trip. We actually fly to Geneva. It's a big trip. We're talking to the Gavi Vaccine Alliance, amazing organization that's giving 7 billion vaccines to children all over the world for smallpox and really in TB and polio. And they're thinking really big. And so the company I was working for was trying to do a very big partnership with them. So there was high stakes. It was really important. And leading up to that, something that happened was I was gaining weight. Sometimes we gain weight. It happens. Women's bodies fluctuate a lot. I was traveling a lot. I just got a new job. I was probably a little bit anxious about that. Who knows what happened, but I was gaining weight and I was so uncomfortable. And I was not fitting into my normal suits and my work clothes that were fitting. And so here I'm like, oh God, this is the first big going on an international trip. We're going to Geneva. We're going to go meet with a big company. I need to have a suit that I feel comfortable in so I can at least, feel really good about all of that. So I go shopping, find a suit. I'm like, okay, even though the suit is literally 2 sizes bigger than my last suit, I'm like, okay, Kristen, we can do this. So I get to Geneva, I'm in the bathroom, and I've spent the entire plane ride prepping for this meeting, right? I've been like entirely in the presentation, rethinking every single word, what's exactly the right pitch part, how am I going to emphasize that? What are the extra data points I can pull in? All of the homework. Get there, sleep, wake up, jet lag, exhausted. What the F time is it? Get into my suit, and I look in the mirror and I am so upset of my body weight right now and that I'm not looking the way that I think I should be looking. So I, no joke, spend, wait for it, 20 minutes looking in the mirror and trying to go, Kristen, you're so awesome. You are beautiful. You look great. You are going to crush this meeting. You are so well prepared. You got this. I'm like, this is the embarrassing laugh. Spent 20 minutes looking in the mirror about being like trying to build myself up, because actually what was going on in my head was, you are so fat. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Why are you here? What's happening? Oh my God. And I went downstairs, had coffee, and there, my colleague was having coffee, looking over at the deck. And I realized at that moment, this really big difference that happened for me was that shame in me of being too fat or not being good enough. And really what it came down to was this underlying thing that I've seen now that happens over and over and over for women. It's like, who do you think you are? Kristen, who do you think you are? You don't know anything about vaccines. You don't know anything about international public health. You don't know anything, like, who are you? And it came out sideways for me in looking at my weight, but it didn't matter. It still was like, who the hell do you think you are? And I spent 20 minutes and a ton of mental energy and exhaustive energy trying to pump myself back up, when my male colleague, he didn't bat an eye about that. And he spent those 20 minutes prepping for the meeting. And it made me so mad once I realized that. I was like, ugh. So how do I then catch those stories earlier so that I don't waste 20 minutes trying to psych myself back up? How do I understand that narrative of never being good enough is actually it's not even a Kristen Clark thing. It's women everywhere. It's a human thing everywhere. And that narrative, when that goes unchecked and that goes in the darkness and that goes hidden, that's the narrative that leads to aggression. It leads to micromanaging. Who here, and I know I can't see you, who here has suddenly been like at work and all of a sudden their boss or something had to be like, oh God, I didn't do something right. Or oh no, of course we should have done it that way. Or okay, got it. Oh, shoot. And what you end up doing is being like, God damn, my team can't do anything. I'm going to do it for them. So I admit I've done this before. I'm going to immediately try to like do the swoop in and then try to fix it for my team because they're not good enough and they're not smart enough or they're not fast enough and they're not going to do it the right way. So I'm going to go do it for them. But what happens in that, all that is for me is actually being, I'm so uncomfortable with my own feelings of shame that I didn't do something. I'm not good enough. Who do I think I am? I'm an imposter. I'm a failure. I've done something wrong. So I'm going to take all my uncomfortable feelings and then I'm going to go try to control my team's feelings. I'm going to go try to control the situation. And that sucks for everybody. It never works. Your team hates you because they're like, what the fuck? You just are coming in to micromanage me right now. I've been doing a great job. We had misset expectations. We had poor communication. How about let's take a pause back on this, you know? And then you feel terrible because you're secretly like, you're angry that it's not going your way. You're angry that you have to do everything yourself. You feel really alone, and the feelings make you want to like crawl out of your skin. That's an example of shame underlying an experience and that coming out sideways. So I'm sharing all of these things because like sometimes we act out in ways that we don't even understand what's happening and how we're feeling about something. So I'm going to show you and kind of walk you through one more example. I've got this on a slide here, so I'm going to do this again here. So this one is probably a common one that you all are talking about right now. It's about investment pitches. So I was on a team. There were 3 other men. We had a co-founder, we had our CEO, our chief strategy officer, and myself. And so it was really the 4 of us, only woman, that were like investor pitch again and again and again and again and again. And guess what happened? We didn't get money, got a lot of no's. And so we had a lot of, we're going to pass funding on you. It's not the right fit. Seems like a different vertical, not quite much, whatever the things were. And so here's this research I had that happened. So my co-founder in a previous company, the same happened. He was a man. And then these 3 guys, their response when we would do the debrief afterwards, we go to the bar, we drink, we get coffee or something, be like, how'd the meeting go? And so this is what I found over and over, that typically men will respond to a moment of failure, and right, and that failure, underlying that failure is a who do I think I am? I'm never going to be enough. What their narrative was, F them, they're so stupid. You know, we're going to go find the next guys and we're going to go show them how great we are. Like, or it would go something like, yeah, I can't believe they asked those questions. Like, they clearly don't understand the space. They would be really bad for us anyway. Not like, you know, this is like terrible. And they just really don't get it and don't get us. And so like, we're just going to like, don't worry, next week, we're going to have the next one. We're going to go do that. And actually, oh, I know this guy and he can get us an introduction, and we're going to go to the next one so we can keep on going and show them how great we are. If anyone has a similar response, I just would like maybe like a little, like just a wave to yourself. My response on this was, oh God, you know, if I had made our lead funnel bigger, or maybe if I had not exaggerated that, or if I maybe had positioned that on the slide, they would have said yes. Also embarrassing, but true. Oh, I just shouldn't have worn that pantsuit. Maybe I should have worn jeans and had a better, like, you know, tech edgy or something to it. Okay, fuck. I'm going to go ask my mentors what I could have done differently. And I'm going to like try to rework this deck because that's what I have control over. And I'm going to stay up until 1 a.m. and be sleep deprived so that like the next presentation, whatever we do, can be better. What actually was happening, so that was on the surface. What actually was happening was that all of my male counterparts were basically like, I'm angry. I'm going to go light them on fire and I'm going to go show them. I'm going to go do something else. For men, what typically happens, so men and women experience shame as a society as equally. That feeling of the cringe, of the warm wash, of the stomach, you know, kind of like coming up in your throat, the feelings of like, oh God, that happens equally for men and women. We process it differently. Men typically will respond in saying that their biggest shame story is that they can't show any weakness. Any weakness at all is a death spiral for male and shame. For women, it's that we have these complicated, unattainable expectations, and it's who do I think I am? I have to do it all. I have to do it perfectly. And I've got to do it in a way that I can't even look like I'm sweating. That's what women have. So the men in this experience, in a very business experience, we get investors, we failed, didn't work. They're like, I'm angry. I'm going to go prove them. I'm going to go do something wrong because they can't be seen as weak, right? I am saying, oh my God, I am exhausted. All I want to do is curl up under the covers and maybe never come out. The other thing that's going on though, around the even further depth is it's like all of the men are like, damn, maybe they're right. I'm never going to get it. Maybe I am really weak and I'm feeling an imposter and I'm never going to get it. That's shame. I'm thinking, who am I? Who do I really think I am? That end result of that underlying piece of shame is felt by all of us, me, my male co-founders, my team. And that's what comes out sideways. And so this is the shame that turns into sludge. So when I started talking about this and I was like, shame is the sludge piece here, this kind of shame that goes unaware and unchecked, this is the thing that is going to like gunk up all sorts of creativity, all sorts of change, all sorts of innovation, all sorts of actual leadership go, because the more you have this circulating in your brain and your body and in your heart and in your space, that stuff weighs you down. It is swampy, it is sludgy, it is like no one wants to talk about it. I don't even want to talk about it now. So you have to move it. And the good news is that when you start moving it, it actually becomes fuel. I promise. So the last story that I want to add to this was after I realized that this was happening with me and my male co-founders, I was like, why aren't there more women in tech leaders? Why aren't there more of us? And then I was like, well, this is interesting. You know, we just had a big failure. We had so many investors. Oh my God, we had so many investors tell us, no, it's not enough. Like I can't even, it was like, this was a high school drama that we basically broke up 5 times. And by breakup, I mean the entire company almost fell apart 5 times because we had no money. And then every time it was like, oh, but just kidding. Your investors came back and gave you a little bit more of a bridge. And then we like maybe had somebody else and then they promised something and that fell apart. It was so dramatic. It's really like, it had been like a high school musical. I started asking more people. I started asking more women, what was their experience? I started asking people on my team. So we had a team dinner, my house, kind of after everything with Dharma. We ended up landing it. We safely found a home for our customers and our technology, which was the most important thing. And as we're talking about it, I went around and asked the whole team, I was like, hey, when you experience shame, something doesn't go right, you experience failure, how do you respond to that? Do you respond nothing? Because that's also another one, the paralysis, the numbing out, done that. Would you respond the anger version? Do you respond the I want to crawl under the covers version? And here's what I heard. Our head of customer success, incredible woman, been in technology 25 years. Her response is, she was like, oh gosh, Kristen, when I heard the news about Dharma, all I could think about was if our customer retention rate was higher, we would have gotten an investor. And I can't even think about it. So I just want to sleep and watch Netflix and eat a lot of ice cream. We had someone from marketing, a woman, say, Dharma is ending. And all I could think about was if I had done a better job on our demand gen program and had gotten more leads, we would have been able to show the investors and we would have gotten money and everything would have been okay. And this is my fault. I don't want to do this again. I had another female product manager who was 3 years into startup world. And it was like, oh my God, this is so much and failing so much that she went to then work for the US Postal Service. I love you, Whitney. But like she swung the whole other way because that experience of having so much trauma, so much failure, so much rapid things, it was just too much and we needed to like go into an entirely different way. I asked all the men at the same dinner table, a lot of the engineers, it was more like, I really want to, I want to show them, I'm going to just do something better next time. Like, F them. Like what else would why would, that's their problem. They're so dumb for not wanting to invest in us because like, why would anyone not want us? And then I kept on asking more of the men, and they were like, oh yeah, like that was so dumb of theirs. Like, we're just going to go, yeah, the next startup that I have. And so they started immediately talking about the next idea, the next startup. So then I started ending up in this group with the other execs, and every single conversation they had was about the next idea, the next startup. We're going to go do something. And here I am, and all of the other women that are like, I need a break. I've got to slow down. I've got to put my head I've got to recover. This is going to take me a minute. And so here's the thing that I've realized in this for women. And I started expanding and doing this research more and more and more in my community. And I'd be really interested in hearing if your direct experience with this is, shame shows up differently for men and women. Women, it tends to put us down because we need to be, the modest, the quiet. We take it deeply personally. And that comes into then, who do I think I am? I should have done something. This shows up about women not asking for more money. This shows up as women not, demanding the same salary expectations. We just constantly think that we need to be smaller, and then we make ourselves smaller because we're so ashamed and we have so much shame about it. Whereas men, they use that same shame, and then they're active, and they're going to go start the next company a lot faster than I'm going to go start my next company. So as we're talking about these aspects right now, I just want you to be able to have like a context and some like real life stories about how that shame that lives inside of us as female execs and female founders and female professionals, like that actually is not just impacting us right now, it's impacting our future decisions. And so we have to make sure that we are metabolizing and moving through these feelings of shame. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of words. Wish I could see all of your faces. So what do? This is going to sound cheesy, and all of these are in a little bit, but I 100% guarantee you that this is so much easier said than done. And it is ridiculously necessary. So the first thing you have to do is you have to feel it in your body. So remember that story that I told you, pedicure friend, Kristen, what's going on? And, and I'm like weeping. That was the first signal, the uncontrollable weeping that I had, that something was wrong. I couldn't think of it. I couldn't, I still was in denial. I totally paralyzed about it. But so if you start feeling it in the body, so things to think about, and this noticing in the body, you actually, you start exactly where you are. And like, so right now, wherever you are, YouTube, on the Zoom, I want you to think about an experience. It could be something super small where like I'm looking in the mirror and be like, I'm really not feeling my best right now. Or, oh, my boss just came in and like, but I want you to think of something that makes you go like that related to work. Investors saying no, or being like, yeah, that just isn't a good fit. Or it's gonna pass. So as you're doing that right now, I want you to think about and notice what's happening in your body as much as you can. So think about your stomach, notice your hands, think about your heart racing. And I want you to just imagine for a second that one of the reasons why we often get very scared of feeling these things and we resist them is because we think that emotions are caves. We think that, oh my God, if I feel this feeling of failure, if I feel this feeling of shame, if I actually feel, maybe it's rage, maybe it's like acute grief. Like if I actually feel this thing, it is the equivalent of I'm going into a cave and I'm going to die and I'm never going to come back out alive. Like we just think that's a cave. I'm going to go in, I'm going to die. And I don't want to do that. But here's the trick. Emotions are not caves, they're tunnels. So you go into a tunnel and it's going to maybe suck and it's going to be really uncomfortable, but you get out the other side and it's getting out that other tunnel. And that what happens in that tunnel, in that transformation, that is what actually can fuel you and give you so much more energy and resources to go faster, farther with what you have. So I want you to notice what you're feeling right now in your body. And then I want you to think about how you can get even more precise about that. So once you feel it in your body, you need to then start listening to the inner story. So you need to start actually understanding what it is. So when I shared with you before about a lot of the things that I told myself, I'm not good enough, who do I think I am, all of those things, you need to start getting really, really honest with yourself and moving that forward. You can do that through a lot of different ways. You can do that through meditation. What I said before, I found therapy works extraordinarily well for me. You need to find what's good for you. But the thing is, it's like you need to start doing something, kind of incorporate what those are. So feel it. You got to find the story. You then have to move it. A lot of times in talk therapy, you go to therapy and you think you talk it through and then that's it and you're done. That's actually not true. There's a lot of research that's come out recently that actually shows how our nervous system, and especially with our gut, is all entirely interconnected. And so once you recognize and feel it, you actually need to move it. So you do it in the brain, you can rewrite a narrative. You can also then do it in your body. So you need to actually move it in your body. You can exercise, you can walk, you can run, you can do anything, but it has to be embodied, even if you're not thinking about it. But that is a really critical piece that often gets missed. The fourth one is that you have to reach out for connection. Now, the trick here, though, is when you reach out for connection, it's not just being like, hey, I need help. You need people and resources and sisters and brothers who are empathetic and really, really understand. So that empathy requires vulnerability. So this is a whole other talk for a different time, and I can send out some resources. But when you reach out, and Stephanie Lampkin talked yesterday in her founder story about her creating a community of Black women co-founders in technology, and that is a perfect example about creating a space where you are not alone. So the most critical thing that you can do when you're in a shame storm is to not be alone. So you feel it, you're like, ooh, I'm feeling the story, I'm in a shame storm. I need to move it, and then I need to reach out and feel not alone so that you can move that. And the trick here is, and if any of you have not seen Brene Brown, I would run, not walk, to Amazon or your latest your online bookstore and get her books or listen to her TED Talks. But one of the things that she says it's so profound is that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's actually the birthplace of your creativity, innovation, and change. So you have to be empathetic. You have to be vulnerable in order to get those new muscles. So the last piece of this story then is like, how can you start changing and moving this? Is that if you can actually then start saying like, okay, investors, you're going to fail. All of us as startups, we're going to experience failure and vulnerability and shame. But if you can start getting through that and being like, wow, that idea failed at this time, in this context with these people, but I'm not a failure. Can I get more feedback? Let me learn from this. And I can trust that I really have a good idea and I'm going to learn from whatever that is. And then that is the grounds for growth and moving forward. So to kind of summarize all of this, and then we're going to open this up for a minute or two of some Q&A, is that this kind of growth is beyond any kind of growth about your target market or thinking about how can you attract new customers, retain them, and drive your revenue. This kind of growth comes from completely shining a light on all of these hidden places within ourselves and our psyches, within our team psyches, and within our communities. And when we do that, when we shine a light onto it and be like, oh, that's shame talking, and we can start metabolizing it and changing that energy. Emotions as tunnels, not as caves. We need to move it. We need to reach out. We need to have empathy, empathetic conversations. When we can do those things, that actually transforms it and gives you so much more rocket fuel to grow in. It's like the most incredible organic natural fertilizer on your little garden of plants, so that you are growing at an exponential rate, but it is in perfect alignment with your full self. So you got all of the sludge out of your car, out of your engine, and you can actually grow as fast and grow and lead and transform as fast as you can. So that was a lot of words. I really appreciate everyone's time today and being willing to talk about an uncomfortable conversation. And so what I'd really like to do right now is just open this up for some, what I call frames. So a frame is just kind of like a, what'd you see, what'd you notice, what'd you get? Doesn't have to be a question, just kind of a reflection and a Q&A. So Austin, I'm gonna ask you for some help if you can on asking people. So either if you got a question, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, definitely. So I just wanted to let everyone know, so we're going to do something a little different here. So if you have any questions at all, any level of interactivity, if you raise your hand, you should be able to see that in your participants pane. We'll unmute you. We'll allow you to have a little conversation here with Kristen. Or if you want to put your questions into the Q&A box or the chat box, we'll read those aloud. The first one here is, could you please repeat the quote by Brene Brown on vulnerability?
Sure. So what Brene said, and I can post this, is that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the most accurate measure of courage. It is the birthplace of creativity, innovation, and change.
Nice. Thank you. That was actually Vanessa. Yeah, I'm going to let Vanessa.
Kristen,
Thank you.
awesome experience. Kristen, really thank you for sharing that. I know when we first met a couple years ago and you shared your story, I was like, you know what, like, if we all can just be a little bit more transparent, we'll alleviate those heavy loads on our shoulders. And you've taught me that in the last 2 years. And so I thank you. I know many times us as founders, we, have a whole lot going on and we don't want people to know that we're just trying to figure it out at times when it comes to hiring. And then someone says, why did you have such a bad hire? Well, everyone has bad hires, but you don't think about that during the time that you're going through it. And so being able to share your stories with others, I mean, that's really powerful. And then you'll find in sharing, as Kristen has done, it really alleviates that load off of you and you realize you're really not alone. So Kristen, I always appreciate your transparency and just the power that you have behind your story. So thank you.
Thank you, Salisa. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for inviting me to come and share this story. It's, as I mentioned before, this is an incredible opportunity and such a privilege to be in this group of powerhouse women, and we're all doing the work. It's like we're all in it and we're all doing the transformative work to change ourselves, to change our companies, to change the world. So I really appreciate being here.
Yes.
Awesome. I wanted to give Vanessa, wanted to have a quick chat. Wanted to give Vanessa a chance to ask a question. Vanessa, are you there?
Hi, I was one who asked about the vulnerability because that's like my biggest issue working in corporate America for years and feeling like I had to have this hard shell, but it ultimately cracked and I was the only one who got affected with my health. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing and being transparent about that, because I really felt alone in that predicament. So it's not a question, it was more of a thank you for sharing and being transparent on what I thought was just really me.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful frame. And that's my hope, is that we can collectively share our transparent stories, because they're so lonely and we're all going through them. So I really appreciate that frame. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. And folks, we do have a little bit of time here. So if you do want to ask a question live or have a little interactivity live, feel free, raise your hand and we'll fit you in. I've got another question here from Jamie. How do you prioritize your company values between making positive social impact and steady growth?
That is a great question. So that question actually comes up a lot in different ways. So especially, as a growth leader, I love growing companies. I mean, we're all here today to grow companies. And so oftentimes what can happen is that when you think that you have to grow in a certain way, right? So when you think that, okay, growth looks like the way my investors want us to grow, which is usually like, are you hitting your revenue targets every single quarter, every single year? So when you think about, okay, what are the expectations from outside about your growth, and then how do you marry that up with your cultural growth, you know, from your team, your employees, you know, all of like the communication that you have, but also then your social impact, you know, and the corporate responsibility aspect, or your actual positive impact in the world. And oftentimes reconciling both of those aspects, you hit friction, and you hit different opinions, and you hit different expectations, and that is exactly where shame pops up, where like somewhere in the narrative in you're being like, oh God, I'm just doing it wrong. If somebody else were doing this, they could do it better. Or why can't I do this right? Like, why can't I just like figure it out? Or why can't they just figure it out? And so I don't have an answer about how you solve that, but what I can say is that it's exactly those types of critical conversations in business, they happen all the time, that I just invite you to start paying attention in your own body. That's all we can change right now. That's actually all we can control, is our response to things, to the world. So notice how you feel in your body. Where are you clamming up? Where are you shutting down? Where are you opening up? What's the story that you're telling inside yourself? I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. You know, they're idiots, whatever the story is. How do you start then moving it, metabolizing it? How do you get and reach out for empathy? And that was exactly what Vanessa just said, is like hearing other people be transparent makes us all feel not alone. And so when you can reach out and be truly vulnerable and experience empathy, that is the birthplace that you will be able to make better decisions for your company and for your community from that place. So I can't say how do you actually do the prioritizations. That's going to be up to you. That's a you and you, an inside job between you and your organization. But what I can say is that the best way to make those decisions is to be really aware of how shame is living in your body.
Thank you so much for that. We do have time for one more quick frame here from Bridget. Hi, Kristen. This has been amazing. Thank you. For so long, we've always heard, don't work with friends. But actually, it feels like your experience has found creativity and security in working with women, colleagues, and friends that you trust personally and professionally. Does that make failure harder when you're amongst friends?
I love that question too. Thank you. Does it make failure harder? Failure is always really hard. Failure has a particular feeling. The shame that goes along with failure has a particular feeling, and it's tough. I think sometimes when we are in a work environment and we can lean on our friends and family in a personal environment to give us support, that can really help us metabolize the experience with work. And so sometimes when then we're working with our friends and family, then yes, that feels like it can get a little bit like interesting, because we don't have a lot of models for it. I have personally found that the more authentic you are, the more transparent you are, the more vulnerable you can be in showing up in all parts of your life, that it is those moments that actually make all of your relationships much stronger. And so for me, in my experience, like, while yes, it might take some difficult conversations, it may require you to be more transparent with working with friends or family or close colleagues. It may require harder conversations, but it's in those harder conversations that actually make you so much stronger and have such stronger relationships that for me, that's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Kristen. Really, 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 really excellent presentation. I walked away with a lot from that presentation myself. I think that you've done a great job of capturing a lot of anxieties and concerns and things that we all deal with. And yeah, that spoke to me personally. And I know it spoke to a lot of other folks as well. So thank you for that a lot.
I'd like to add, just everybody, if you haven't completed the poll, please complete the poll. Thank you.
For sure. So great job. Thank you again, Kristen. And thank you, everyone. So what we're going to do right now, we've got a couple of options. We've got two panels that we're about to split off into, and we want to give you a chance, a few moments here to choose where you want to be. So in our other panel, It's called If Only You Knew, the Gems Offered by Universities. And we've got Richard Lyons from Berkeley over there. We've got Eric Cohn from Binghamton over there, Shannon Festizo from USF over there. So if you're interested in going over to one of those sessions, the link is in the chat. Feel free to head on off over there. We'll give everyone a moment to head that way. Otherwise, right here in this room, we're going to start heading off to our next panel, which is a PEO can be a startup's best friend. And that's going to be, that's going to be hosted by Beyond the Workplace LLC, Wendy Silver. Wendy?
Hello there. How are you? Everybody, I know you can't respond, so I'm going to assume everyone's hanging in there. Well, good afternoon and welcome to the panel. A PEO can be a startup's best friend. And for those who are not familiar with PEOs or what they are, we're going to go over all that. It stands for Professional Employer Organization, and many of you may already be familiar, but we're going to really get into how they can really help out your startup organization. But first, I want to make sure we do some introductions. My name is Wendy. I am the founder of Beyond the Workplace, a boutique HR consulting company specializing in employee relations. I really call it boutique because it's just me. And I spent the past 20 years in law and HR, and I have a passion for building brave and better workplaces, particularly for women. I am also a commissioner on the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women. I also recently just launched a podcast called The Power Hour. That's POWHER, which I hope that you'll check out. And I'm always looking for great guests, so don't hesitate to reach out if my mission resonates with yours. And I'm also a mom. I have a 16-year-old son, Jason, and I have an 18-year-old daughter, Abby, who is heading off to college on Monday. So I actually just had the benefit of hearing a little bit of Kristen's talk about vulnerability and transparency. And so with full transparency, I'm feeling very frazzled these days, getting her ready to go, which I think is different under any circumstance, but I think we can all agree everything is a little bit harder in our current environment. So bear with me, but I'm excited to be doing this today, and I'm excited to introduce you to our panel. Today we have Megan Pinchette. Is that how I pronounce her last name, Megan?
Yes,
Yes.
Pinchette. Yeah,
Perfect.
You did great.
Great. Megan is a regional technology sales consultant for TriNet. With over 6 years in the human resources industry, her experience spans a wide range of roles from workers' compensation and payroll to event management and sales. In her current role with TriNet, she focuses on building relationships with small and medium-sized startups and technology firms in the New England region. She is passionate about helping small businesses grow and succeed by easing the burden many small companies face in managing their most valuable asset, their employees. We are also lucky to have Valerie Avila from JustWorks. Valerie is the senior sales manager for JustWorks, and after being hired as an individual contributor, she quickly rose through the ranks and is now the 5th most tenured employee of JustWorks. Valerie has helped the company scale rapidly over the past 6 years from a pre-Series A business to the 2nd fastest growing company in the country. As a Puerto Rican woman, she has always been extremely passionate about equity and enhancing the representation of minorities in leadership positions, which led her to start the Just Women Initiative in 2014. She and Just Women have since been featured in Forbes, Built-in, Supermaker, and Quartz. So welcome to you both. And I want to just give you each a minute just to sort of, say hello and just to sort of keep this fun and personalize it a little bit. Also share with us something that you're binge watching or reading these days. I think we all are looking for ways to keep ourselves entertained during this pandemic. So Megan, I will start with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Nice to meet everyone virtually. I think the only thing I would add to my introduction that most people don't know is that small business actually runs in the DNA, if you will. My 2 fathers up in New Hampshire are both small business owners. We're going on 3 generations of Pinchette brothers, if you want to Google it. So small business has always been a very big passion of mine. I would say something I'm binge watching. I actually just finished Selling Sunset. It's such a cheesy show on Netflix, but I
What
literally
was it? What was it?
Selling Sunset. It's like,
Oh,
yes.
all
yes.
right. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, they're like these fabulous women that sell these multi-million-dollar homes. Very
Awesome.
unrealistic, but I love it.
Awesome.
Yes. So
Thank-
that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. And Valerie.
Yeah, funny you mentioned Selling Sunset. Last night I was actually watching $1 Million Listing. So
Oh,
similar,
You guys might have a lot in common. I don't.
seems like it. I'm also binge watching Charmed, you know, doing a throwback there and,
Yeah.
you know, watching the things that I know can last me for a long time during this quarantine.
I think lighthearted things are good all the way around right now.
100%.
Mhm.
There's so much heavy stuff going on in the world. So it's good to have that balance. But on, I guess, kind of a deeper level, I'm also reading The Red Book by Carl Jung. So I was a philosophy major back in college. So I still keep that muscle a little, you know, strong through reading.
Awesome. So we're going to jump in. I'm just going to start by, you know, throwing out some questions. I just also want to let people know if you want to put questions into the chat, feel free, and I'll try to keep my eye on that as well. But we will also have time towards the end for questions. And also there is going to be an opportunity to join Megan and Valerie in their own private salon breakout rooms after this. So let's get started. Megan, how would you define a PEO, and how would you, in the context of that, how would you say it's different from, for example, a small business using a broker for health insurance?
yeah, sure. So our PEO, we're a professional employers organization. So they're made for helping small to mid-sized businesses manage payroll, employee taxes, benefits, workers' comp, compliance. There's really a big range depending on which PEO you engage with, but we all operate under a co-employment model. So as a co-employer or the employer of record, if you will, for tax purposes, we're responsible for collecting and remitting payroll taxes for employees on its platform. The client still remains full control of their workforce with hiring and firing culture. That's all theirs. And as the employer of record, it just really allows the employees access to a better range of benefits and other service options that are negotiated and sponsored solely by the PEO. So that's kind of my long-winded answer of what is a PEO. And then to shift gears on what's kind of the difference between a broker versus, say, using a PEO. Honestly, I like to describe it's like comparing apples and oranges. They're both fruits, but they taste very different.
I use the same exact phrase. It's funny you say that.
Oh my God, that is so funny. So most PEOs, we go shop out as a large employer. So you get access to that. So TriNet, as an example, we have 15,000 clients. So there's a big pool of people that make up those 15,000 clients. Our pool is like 350,000 people at the moment. So we go shop out benefits as a large employer, even though you're a small business in that pool. So you're just gonna get access to a lot more benefits than you would get if you were to use a broker. So if you go to a broker, usually you're only allowed to engage with one carrier. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll get 3 options to choose from. Where as a PEO, you're gonna get different carriers in every different region of the country to use. You're gonna get in Massachusetts, as an example, all of our clients get Tufts and Aetna and 14 different plans. So a high deductible versus a 0 deductible plan, because what's really hard with using a broker is you usually only get to pick the 1 to 3 plans. And for your startup, most of startups have different breadth of employees. Like some employees are young and rocking their parents' benefits versus some of these founders have families. So those 2 people need very different benefits. So a PEO gives you the ability to have a wide range of benefits to fit all of their needs.
Awesome. And Valerie, I want to give you a chance to add anything you want to that. And also, while you do that, if you could answer at the same time whether or not having that variety is also offers some financial incentives at the same time.
Sure. So in terms of adding to the PEO definition, I think some of the other advantages that come with it is, usually if you're going through a broker, you have a different system managing your payroll. You have a different system, potentially also managing compliance needs, whether that's an HR consultant or a lawyer or something of that nature. And so you're having to engage with multiple service providers to effectively manage your HR needs as a business. When you're with a PEO, you have it all under one roof and you're not having to shop around for these different services. You're not having to then integrate like, okay, I have my benefits here. I need to now make sure to put in the deduction for my payroll for the right amount so that my employees don't, so that they can contribute their portion. You're having to reconcile these things. There's a lot of space for human error, not to mention error in terms of compliance requirements, in and of itself. So
and even the legwork to find all those people is a challenge. Yeah.
Finding them, then the risk involved with it. And, it's a lot, especially as you're starting out a business. You really want to be focused on what's going to drive revenue, what's going to drive growth for your business and your mission and what you want to achieve. And, this is kind of the back office stuff that oftentimes gets in the way. So PEOs really help with that. As far as financial incentives, it really depends on the group. And it varies so significantly because while in a PEO arrangement, you do get the leveraged buying power of, to Megan's point, thousands and thousands and thousands of worksite employees all together. And you have these negotiated rates or rather the negotiated plans from a carrier perspective and potential other perks that come along with that. But the actual groups themselves coming on board are always underwritten individually. So if anybody remembers health insurance pre-ACA, that's kind of like what I reference it to, because when you were a small company before the ACA, those companies would always get underwritten for insurance individually. Once the ACA came on, the state standardized rates for folks, either by age banding, so what age you are, or it was a community rated amount based on, and each state is a little bit different. So the way that groups are underwritten is actually based on some risk factors of the group themselves. So they're given access to more options and potentially richer plans, but the actual financial incentive is really going to be contingent on the group, on the location, on what the alternatives are. And, some PEOs do offer the ability to either come onto our master policies, for instance, like Megan was referring to, which we have them too, or you could go onto a small group policy and do what's more competitive for you as a business owner. Over time, though, outside of insurance, the reason I mentioned that first is because that's usually the biggest thought when it comes to PEO is, I can save money on health insurance. That's a bit of a misconception. It does happen sometimes. It doesn't always happen. But it does in the long run save a lot in terms of administrative costs, in terms of, potential burden for compliance issues, time saved, and even facilitating hiring.
Yeah.
Because we have these richer benefit options.
When do you, and I'll start with you, Valerie, for this. When do you see startups most often turning to a PEO for help? I know that when I work with small businesses and startups, it often, from my view, it tends to be when, the person, the CFO, the COO who is managing all that stuff is just kind of like, I can't do this anymore. I need help. And that changes for a lot of people. I see that happening on my end, close to the 30 to 40, certainly by the 30 to 40 employee mark, but often sooner. What has been your experience with when you see companies, startups turning to PEOs for help, and what do you recommend?
So I usually see three main trigger points. It's either at the point of company formation, where either they've been there and they've done that and they know that the PEO is the right thing for them to grow with. So they want to just do it right off the bat so they don't have to worry about it later. It can be at the point of something going wrong, whether that's that they get fined, or they're expanding into different states now and they don't know how to manage it, or they have to add benefits because they lost candidates that they would have hired otherwise, or they're reevaluating their systems to decide what's best to scale with. So really kind of three main trigger points. And I find that almost every single business has at least one of those trigger points happen to them at some point. So I always recommend to definitely look into options when you are setting up right at the beginning, and incorporate PEOs into that process, because you might save yourself a lot of time down the road.
Okay, great. Megan, what are there, so at first, is there any requirements that you would need as a startup to have in place before you'd partner with the PEO? And how can hiring a PEO really affect your growth?
Yes. So to speak from TriNet, we do have a minimum to engage with us. You have to have at least 5 employees in order to come on our platform. I'm sure Valerie, it's the same.
Do they have to be getting health insurance too, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You have options where you can carve out medical if you're in love with your broker or he's your best friend.
Or I mean, a lot of small businesses don't have to offer it, so they might not be able to yet, but they still might want to outsource some help. So I guess I'm wondering if that would be a good fit for a PEO. And then when they want to add benefits when they're ready, but.
Yes. So we call it TriNet 11. So you're allowed to carve it out if you're not ready to take on kind of that financial burden that sometimes comes with offering benefits. That is a possibility. Go on TriNet 11, and then you can convert whenever you're ready to actually offer benefits. We would go through another process to get benefits, and then kind of change your platform, if you will.
Got it.
Yeah. And for us, by the way, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Valerie, and then I'll go let Megan finish the second part.
Sure, no problem. For us, it's a 2-person minimum. So, right when you're hiring your first employee, if it's just owner and employee, we can work with you. So if you're at that stage and you're just starting to look, then let me know as well.
Just also, I guess, I said, there are a lot of companies who unfortunately can't afford benefits, but also I think we all know the value that brings a company when they can offer it, because you really are able to attract, I think, a wider array of applicants. Do you have an opinion about that in terms of how that has been helpful to startups to be able to offer those benefits?
Yeah. So essentially, if you're not offering benefits now, you're bootstrapping your startup right now, you just don't have the funds to offer benefits. Usually it's never a question of never doing it. It's just when am I going to do it? So I think that conversation always has to come, because to be competitive in the market, especially in Boston, we have an influx of talent, but usually it's really scarce to find talent. And if you're not offering benefits, most millennials, or whatever you want to call us, won't necessarily sign up for that. So to be competitive, you usually have to offer some kind of benefit.
Yeah. I'd love for you both to be able to speak to about how a PEO can reduce risk and liability for a company, and does partnering with a PEO really reduce that risk and save companies money?
Yeah, so there are some stats out there. So there's an organization called NAPIO, the National Association of Professional Employer Organizations. Very, very, I know, sexy title and everything, but has a lot of really interesting stats around PEOs, because all credible PEOs are definitely part of that organization. So they do a lot of studies, and they have found that, this is not necessarily related to risk, but more around growth. Companies that use PEOs tend to grow 7 to 9% faster. They have a 10 to 14% lower turnover, and are 50% less likely to go out of business.
Interesting. Wow.
A lot of that is credited to offloading, a lot of the compliance burden, a lot of the tasks. Also for the turnover perspective, one of the advantages, to speak to your point from earlier, in attracting talent and retaining talent is having access to those benefits. And also not only having access to the benefits, but also having a partner that has a pulse on what is relevant for candidates right now. So that's huge, because it really helps limit. There are different buckets of risk, right? There's kind of the compliance related risk where you don't want to get fined by the IRS, and we definitely minimize that. And so that's huge. But then there's also the risk of losing people that you want to have at your company. There's the risk of not losing out on potential, and not allocating your time as effectively as possible. So I'd say there are multiple ways in which we minimize that.
Yeah, and I would think, Megan, and so what does that look like if if you bring a PEO on board? I imagine, and I know from my clients, a lot of times it's, it's having that lifeline, right? When something comes up, you don't know how to deal with it, you have somebody to call, which is huge. But I think also there must be a lot of other things that you offer as a PEO, because we, as small businesses or entrepreneurs, you often don't know what you don't know. So what, Megan, does TriNet do on a proactive basis to kind of help address the liability and risk factor for companies?
Yeah, so when you first onboard with TriNet, we do a 365 check on your business, state of the union, if you will. So everyone who's a client of us gets assigned an HR consultant, usually who's local at the Boston office. So they're going to go through all of your paperwork. So they're going to go through your I-9 forms. They're going to go through your handbook. They're going to go through your sexual harassment training, if you have one. They're going to go through all your existing documents to make sure that they're compliant, as well as all your state registrations. We're going to make sure you are registered in all the proper states. So we're really going to make sure before you even become a client that everything is sound and safe in the way it's supposed to be. Because like the co-employer model, we don't want to take on risk that's really risky. So we want to make sure you're doing things as properly and as compliantly as possible from the start of the relationship. And then after the relationship begins, we're going to help you with workers' comp insurance and claim management. We're going to help you with Right Now COBRA. We're going to help you sending out those forms, making sure if you have to cancel your benefits, making sure you're canceling them within this window you are supposed to. If you have any questions about, I'm trying to fire this employee, if I'm doing it correctly, that HR consultant is really there to kind of lean on to make sure that you're always kind of doing things the right way. So no one turns around and sues you, which is the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, a lot of time and money go there. So yeah, proactive is key for sure. Valerie, and I think we kind of touched on this, I think, with the benefits, but I'm wondering if, in addition to benefits, are there other ways that a PEO can help level the playing field for their clients in terms of attracting qualified, talent?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things, right? Like if you have, I think a lot of it has to do with benefits, but there's also something to be said around the technology that you use as a business and what that says to people that you're hiring. More and more millennial generation, I think we kind of have now shifted to now the Gen Z at this point generation. Sorry, I don't even know what the new generation.
I don't even know.
But
I'm not going to tell you my generation. So go ahead.
But the point is that technology is that much more important for how you're delivering your brand message out in the marketplace. And if you're using paper files, let's say, what does that say to somebody working at your company? That tells the people working at your company that you have a lot of likely inefficiencies in the workflows. And there's a huge area for improvement versus if you're using some of the latest, more modern technology that actually helps you do things faster, gives people access to things at a faster rate, enables individuals to get information themselves instead of rely on one person to provide that information. Like that's the kind of stuff that you get from having, first off, an all-in-one model. And I definitely have to also say JustWorks, that's one of our key pillars is the technology and service coupled with the service. So they get the benefits, right? Like improved benefits and perks, so you can hire the right talent. And then you're also delivering a good message to your team that, hey, we are here for you. We are giving you the efficient systems. We know that. We want to scale, we want to build the company in the right ways that fit in today's world. And that's really big as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I talk with my clients about that a lot. Inside technology aside, even behind the technology, I think when you engage with a PEO, you're forced to think through processes and policies, and employees want to know, when they go to interview, how do you handle this? How do you handle that? And so having all that can really give you legitimize your company to a large degree. So I think that is huge. So actually, so along those lines, Megan, how I think it's helpful for people to understand what the process looks like, not in minute detail, but because that's overwhelming. But just if somebody were thinking about implementing a PEO, and I always tell small business startups, you want to think about these things early, because it's like building a house. Like, you want to have a good foundation and structure in place. You can add it later, but it's a little bit harder. So, it's good to start off with that. But what does an implementation look like? What would they want to be thinking about? Who would be doing that for an organization? Just give us some perspective about that.
Yeah. So once you're like, let's sign up for TriNet, which I hope it happens all the time. But so usually the way we do it is we do 3 calls to kind of set up the onboarding and then run first payroll. So usually I help you through the onboarding process, but the initial call that happens, the call number 1, happens with me, the new account manager for your account, plus the HR consultant. So you're gonna have 3 people on the initial call, kind of a welcome call. And then the second one is kind of where we build your HRIS system. So it's gonna be co-branded if you need expense management, applicant tracking, if you have certain PTO policies that you wanna upload, if you have certain papers that go out to your employees on day 1, if you want that.
And even payroll, I imagine some people have to change from one payroll to another if they have another one in place. Do you walk them through all that?
Yeah. So if you currently use another person for payroll, we'll do a payroll upload. So all of your employees, all of their pay will all be loaded on your system. So you're not actually going in there and like plugging away. Like, there is someone hired by TriNet to handle your onboarding. So it's very seamless. Like, people think, oh my God, this is such a project. This is going to take hours and hours. And honestly, these calls, 2 hours you're it. It's it. Uploaded, everything is complete. And then we do your benefits. If you do decide to do benefits with us, then you have a separate call for benefits, and we'll talk through what your funding strategy is going to look like and which plans you want to choose from for your employees. So really, the whole load to onboard,
Soup to nuts,
it's hours, a couple hours at most of your time.
Valerie, is that similar for JustWorks, the process?
Yeah, it's similar for sure. We have a specialized team focused on onboarding. So whoever is evaluating us and also decides, it's time to go to JustWorks, let's get started. Then, we have the sales rep that they've been working with would facilitate the steps leading up to that process. And we have we established that there are some very minute details that are so important that get captured and having people that are specialized in transitioning companies is key. So we have specific onboarding managers that will work with you day to day, get things on board. All you have to provide are a few different reports and contribution methods, which actually, we have a very easy flow as well in the platform, setting a lot of those things up. So you get a lot of control over when you want to get things done, and they 24/7 support as well as they're going through it, because we have 24/7 US-based support.
Okay, awesome. So I want to switch gears a little bit. This, as I think we all would agree, is an important time to support women and minority organizations. I'd love for you each to speak to how your company has been an ally for those startups. Megan, you want to go? You want to jump in?
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll kick it off. So something that TriNet has done within the year and a half that I've been really proud of is we started the People Matters campaign. So what we've done, it was completely shot by Annie Leibovitz to showcase women founders and people of minority. So pretty much our whole brand campaign, like I'm talking like billboards at Grand Central Station, like I'm talking football stadiums filled with our founders' faces on it and like try to, it's like this big at the corner of it. So really broadcasting and showcasing these amazing founders. So something in particular was really amazing. So the inside cover of Allure magazine, we actually showcased Left Field Lab CEO, Sarah breastfeeding, like iconic, like so iconic. And once again, trying to, it's like little logos on the side, but it's really to promote our clients because that's the backbone of TriNet are these amazing founders. And we really took a step forward to be like, we need to showcase them and all the amazing work that they are doing right now.
Awesome.
Sure. So from a JustWorks perspective, I mean, back in 2014, you had mentioned it in the introduction, I started Just Women, which was actually an event series. It was our first formalized event series that we did, and it was all centered around women entrepreneurship and creating safe spaces to have conversation and giving them access to great resources from founders within our network or VCs within our network. That has since expanded. We've launched it into multiple cities. We are rethinking how to do it right now, given the pandemic. But that was the first wave of investment into investing in other women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. We also have discounts for MWBE businesses as well, and we're working on even furthering that program and creating even greater discounts for companies that are newly forming to support them during this, really crazy time. Internally, we've also put our money where our mouth is, and we have multiple ERGs, and we are among the first companies in the country that actually compensate members of ERGs. So for us, we believe that making a difference for women and minorities in the world, it starts internally and externally. We have influence within what we can do as a company internally ourselves, and we can also help our customers and those companies and take the learnings that we have from ourselves and help others also achieve that. So it's really about being a lot more progressive for us and our employees and paying them and investing in the ERGs and being true to that mission. And then also providing content and collateral and information. And we've created plenty of tools and resources that you can find in the blog as well on how to support women, minority, essentially any marginalized groups within your company, or if you're a founder or leader, there are resources.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, great. And Valerie, you kind of started to touch on this, but I'd love for you both to speak to the fact that we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and we know that businesses are facing a lot of challenges right now. And I'm wondering if you guys could share sort of any common themes that you're seeing about how businesses and startups in particular, how they're being impacted, and how, TriNet and JustWorks are working to address those.
Sure. So one of the big themes that we've definitely seen is, this is no shocker to anybody, but it's remote work, right? It's working, and that comes with a few different things. One, there's like a whole compliance level of that, which means, people working in literally different states. And so that increases the level of complexity for an employer. And then the other piece of that is the more human aspect, which is connection, and how, we can actually build great cultures as small businesses in the country. Like how can all of us continue to have a wonderful culture and connect and make sure that we're paying attention to mental health. That's one of the other big themes, like mental health, remote work, isolation, creating that connection, because now I'm forgetting who said this, but culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So I'm just blanking.
I like that, yeah.
So we're big believers in that, and so
how do you do that for your clients?
Sure. So from a culture perspective, again, it's all about content that we've created. We also have an HR consulting team, which, our HR consultants advise multiple of our customers on these strategies. They can reach out. We send out proactive content as well to our clients as we develop new ones. So it's both from a content perspective and a one-to-one HR consulting perspective that we provide those resources. From a compliance perspective, definitely as a PEO, just by nature, that helps. And we're also thinking about ways that we can enhance the tooling within our product to facilitate things for companies and make things easier as these changes are arising. And that's one of the advantages of JustWorks too, is we have a lot of control over our product and how we build it. And then the third piece is on the mental health. And so we're investing a lot in tooling there as well, and providing resources for different companies through EAPs and also through a mental health partnership that is up.
So, and I'm going to give you a chance to answer that too, Megan, but I also just want to say, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I mean, in the midst of a global pandemic where everything's basically being done remotely, I imagine companies who already have these PEOs in place from a technological point of view are already sort of a little bit ahead of the game, because they don't have to worry about, you know, I have to go see my benefits person if I need this, or I need that. Everything's sort of done through the technology, and it's virtual anyway.
100%.
So that's a huge advantage, I would think, in this context. Yeah.
Even down to the most simple things such as mail.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
to your office, you can't get mail if you're missing really important government notices or you know, insurance. Notices. Like that's even the simplest thing, but I mean, we handle that, and they don't have to worry about it.
Awesome. Megan, I'd love for you to answer the same question.
Yeah. Same trends as Valerie's seeing. I would say the only thing that I would add on the trends is locally here in Boston. I know the tech industry has been hit really hard with dealing with major layoffs. Like all of our like huge companies like TripAdvisor, Toast, I mean, Robot are laying off hundreds of people, which is, I mean, very complicated to all the paperwork that goes with laying off people. And then also thinking about a lot of companies are applying for the PPP loan. I mean, really companies are just trying to stay open. They're try to do whatever they possibly can to keep as many employees as possible and to keep their doors open, I think is a huge thing that a lot of these founders are dealing with for the first time. And I know TriNet has really been on the forefront of kind of assisting all of our clients. We're on the phone with them. We are going, if they allow us, going out to them, anything we can do to assist. So we're doing everything from having those consultative conversations about, okay, how many employees right now? How much runway do you have? What can we do? Can we furlough these people? Do we have to lay off these people? Can we keep these people? Having these very like strategic conversations with them where like, can we cut cost here? Can we cut the benefits temporarily so these employees can still have jobs at the end of the day? So
I mean, and speaking of power of partnership, I mean, that's huge for companies in these times.
Just to have a resource, just having someone that they can call to really have these conversations. I mean, it's life-changing. I mean, I know one of our HR consultants that sits here locally in Boston, she's a former attorney, an employment attorney. So like to have her as a resource for you could be the difference of staying open or not staying open. So, and even people that aren't clients of ours, we created a whole microsite that I'm happy to share with everyone else in the link. It's all free resources to small and mid-sized businesses, from doing webinars weekly, from our giving up our kind of time, our HR person, our chief legal officer to do these webinars totally for free. Anyone can join these on either how to cut benefits temporarily, how to do the PP loan, how to apply for it, just the basics. And there's just tons of great resources that we're making available for the first time.
Yeah, awesome. Speaking of the PPP and FFCRA, and even this weekend, another executive order was signed, right, around payroll tax deferrals. So, you know, having a partner in that is huge. I mean, literally, I've been the most proud I think I've ever been to work at JustWorks this year, because we have made such a significant difference. We have saved people's lives and financially, and also for some people even access to the right type of care, right? Like things like that, where people are getting sick, they need to find the right resources, and then they also need to save their business from a financial perspective. So you know, within days of those new legislations being written and signed in office, we were able to build out resources.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge for startups and small businesses who are they're trying to run their business, they're trying to grow their business, and to have to understand all of that other stuff at the same time is a huge burden and very overwhelming. And so this is why I refer my clients to PEOs, because how do you sleep at night with all of that weighing on you? And so I think you guys do make it really, really much easier for companies to succeed. So I think that's awesome. I know there's a lot of choice out there for company. There, TriNet, JustWorks, there are other companies out there. We won't name them now, but they are out there. I would love for you each to speak about how founders would find the best PEO partnership for them and their business. And, one thing or what comes to mind for you about your company that others might not know that would perhaps be attractive to businesses out there. Megan, I'll start with you.
Okay, perfect. So I would say the first piece of that question, sorry, I just lost. So for choice, honestly shop, because every PEO we do really operate differently. I mean, fundamentally we do the same thing, but we are all slightly a little different. So the best thing you can do is shop around and see what your options are. So I think that's really impactful, just to know your options and to look. And I would say a big difference between us and someone else, and that people usually don't know, is that TriNet's been around for 30 years. I mean, we're an institution in the PEO space and we're publicly traded. So a lot of people don't know that. I feel like PEO is kind of a new term, especially in the Boston region, but in all actuality, we've been around for a very long time. So I think that is something that I would like people to know. And also that we do have a whole division of TriNet that just focuses on technology companies and startups and life science companies. So everyone from the person that's doing your inbound marketing, from your HR person to me, we all specialize in startups and technology, and we have many other divisions within TriNet, but we do have a division sole focus to help startups.
I actually had that question, and maybe Valerie, you can answer this in the midst of your answer, whether or not certain PEOs target only specific industries, and do both of your organizations, I know you might have some specialties, but could any startup or small business come to you?
Yeah, so I mean, there are certain PEOs that definitely target specific industries. However, I'd say the major ones, such as TriNet, such as JustWorks, such as the other ones that you mentioned, we wouldn't name, ADP and Insperity. I mean, some of the biggest ones, we do service multiple types of industries. For JustWorks, we do primarily white collar. However, we do bring on some more risky business from a workers' comp perspective. And we also have a carve-out program for workers' comp. So if for whatever reason it is a bit higher risk that we're not typically used to, we just won't bring you onto our workers' comp policy ourselves, but you can keep your own. So there are options. For JustWorks, what I'd definitely like people to know, I mean, we have the way that we've really grown in the market is by also learning from others along the way. We incorporate our customers into everything we do. We have a customer board that specifically engages with our product teams, with our engineering teams, with our CS teams, like every team, to provide feedback, to inform on trends, to inform on what's important, and give us feedback on how we're building out certain things to make sure it's relevant to our clients. And that's our go-to pool. However, we also incorporate a lot of other customers if they ever want to get involved in feedback in our product. We've been the only PEO to really build everything out from completely the ground up. From a technology perspective. So we've had a lot more agility in terms of how we can grow with our customer base and what we can actually do. So I definitely like people to know that. Oftentimes though, sometimes people will think, okay, well, you're technology enabled, that means I sacrifice on service. That's absolutely not the case. We have actually one of the highest NPS ratings in all of the HR space at +60. And that's one of the key pillars as to why a lot of our companies stay with us, because of our 24/7 amazing support. And we just we understand our customers. We are a growing company ourselves.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you both. I'm mindful of the time. We have 1 minute left, so I don't know if there are questions. The good news is that you are both headed to a breakout room where participants can join you. And I think everybody should have that link in their agenda. If there are, yes, and they are right here in the chat section. So this has been awesome. I really have enjoyed talking to both of you. And if I don't know if you guys want to also put your contact information in the chat, although I guess you could also do that in your breakout room. This has been really, really helpful. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, really great job, everyone. That was awesome. It was highly informative. I learned a lot on this call. There was just a lot of information there.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
We didn't even scratch. I feel like I'm not sure we scratched. I think we gave a good overview, hopefully.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I literally was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I got to go back and review this later. There's so much here that I need to mine and process and consider, you know, especially as a growing business myself, right? It's just like so much to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So thank you.
These guys make it easier, so.
Yeah.
I'd like to echo Megan's sentiment too, and the key thing is shop around, because every business is different.
Yeah.
Needs are different. You want to engage the person that you're speaking with.
I'll also say, even if you don't think your company's ready, have the conversations anyway, so that when you are ready, you kind of know exactly where to go, and you know what to be ready for and what to have in place. I think it's always a worthwhile proactive step to take.
Awesome. Thank you, all three of you. Thank you so much. That was really great.
All right.
So everyone, thank you for attending for that. Go ahead and participate in that poll that we've got up. So right now we're going to take a quick little 5-10 minute break. We've got some breakout sessions that are about to start. We've got TriNet's going to be going to their own breakout room. And JustWorks is also going to be going to their own breakout room. Those links are in the chat. So whichever room you want to go to, here in about 5 to 7 minutes, those rooms will open up. You'll be able to click the link. You'll be whisked right away, and then you'll be able to have some more in-depth conversations with these two here on the panel today. Thank you so much. And everyone, keep in mind, after the breakout sessions, we're going to come right back here for our last few panels. We've got some really, really good folks coming up at the very end of the session today. If you need help, if you get lost, feel free, reach out to us. We're going to be here in the main room. Refer to your digital agenda. That's going to get you where you need to go. But we're going to be here for you. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you all in about 10 minutes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.